Back to the Culture Call on Praise 93.3 with L. Spencer Smith. Our desire is to reach and empower the community by discussing a cross-section of relevant topics from various perspectives that are essential to its growth and interpersonal connections. Be sure to save our call-in number, 205-752-4800. Be sure to install the free Praise 93.3 app so you can send L. Spencer Smith a message or topic idea. Search for WTSK in your app store.
This is the world premiere. Great morning, precious people. You know what time it is. That's right. Your number one talk show, The Culture Call, with yours truly, L. Spencer Smith, right here on 790 WTSK Praise 93.3, your inspiration station. Listen, this is the place where Tuscaloosa meets the world. And for the next 2 hours from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m., we're going to be right here. That's right here, talking a little bit about everything from society to sports, education, economics, from religion, to relationships. And as always, we are here to create a safe space to have empowering, provocative, and yes, y'all, controversial conversations. And guess what? You can call in or you can chat it up with me as we learn together right here on the Culture Call. Listen, let me give my shout outs for this morning. You know what we do. Number one, to all of our first time listeners. Maybe this is your first time being a part of the Culture Call. Listen, I don't know how you heard it. I don't know who you heard it from, but you need to give them something or pay them, buy them lunch or something, because they have just blessed your life. If this is your first time, I don't know whether you're on vacation, whether you're sitting at your cubicle at work, or maybe you're on vacation. Nonetheless, I am so glad and grateful that you are a part of the CC family. Absolutely. And we are grateful to have you on board. Strap up, because it's going to be an awesome, awesome day. Number two, shout out to all of my faithful, consistent, committed listeners. That's right. Absolutely. You make us what we are. We've been doing this for over a year, and we could not have done it without you and your support. I am so glad and so very, very, very grateful to have you on with me every day. That's right. Encouraging me when you see me, calling me up, sending me little messages and everything, letting me know how much of a good job that I'm doing. I try, y'all. I promise you, every day I try. But thank you for being with me all of this time. And guess what? The best is yet to come. Keep hanging out with me. And last but certainly not least, shout out number 3 goes to the inimitable, anointed, phenomenal Brother Jay. That's right. I wish I had some applause. Because he is phenomenal mind, a phenomenal man with a phenomenal mission from God to bless us through from 5 a.m. to 10 a.m. passing me this revival baton every day. He makes sure that I am doing what I got to do to keep you abreast and to make sure that we keep making WTSK 790 and Praise 93.3 FM number 1. And we are doing just that. Thank you so much, Brother Jay. I'm grateful to be your pupil. Absolutely. You know, if you don't have a mentor, some of y'all need some mentors. You need to get some good ones too. Absolutely. Not somebody who's just going to tell you what you want to hear, but somebody who's going to tell you the truth about you and your purpose. So shout out to Brother Jay. Listen, if you're not done so already, go ahead and go to your Apple device and download your Apple or your Android device and download the free 99 app right there. That's right. Go to the App Store. You'll see Praise 93.3. You go ahead and do that, and you can hear us from all around the world, all around the country. Doesn't matter where you are. We want you to take this trip with us. And so no matter if you're in Detroit, Michigan, Chicago, Illinois, Charleston, South Carolina, or right here in the beautiful city of Tuscaloosa, Mobile, Montgomery, Birmingham, Huntsville, Gordo, Utah, Hale County, wherever you are, Demopolis, does not matter. I want you to tune in to the fabulous programming we have on this station, not just with Brother Jay starting it off and the Culture Call, but all throughout the day. It's going to give you news. It's going to give you entertainment. It's going to give you the weather. You know, and this weather has been really crazy coming from the Gulf. I'm telling you, you need to keep our eyes on that. Even as we enter into hurricane season, coming into the fall months, we definitely have to do what we've got to do. But keep it right here with that app. Do me a favor. Go ahead and send me your public service announcements and your events at culturecall.praise@gmail.com. That's culturecall.praise gmail.com and give us the opportunity to let everybody, Lottie, Dottie, and everybody know what's happening in your neck of the woods, your church, your organization, your sorority, your fraternity. Maybe you're an artist, getting ready to do a concert or have your first live recording, or maybe you're a pastor or preacher that's getting ready to run a revival or start and plant your church. We want to let everybody know and put some faces in the place so that you will know the work that you do in this community means a whole lot. You know why? Because we do it better when we do it together. And as always, you can call in at 205-752-4800. That's 205-752-4800. And you can call into the show and be a part of the conversation. Also, follow us on Facebook. I've been getting a lot of followers. Thank you guys for following. Follow us on Facebook, The Culture Call. That's right. Just push that like button and you can follow us there. We always have something interesting going on throughout the entire day. And if you missed the past episode of The Culture Call, you can go to Apple Podcasts where all of our archives are there. Just type in Culture Call. You're going to see my face. Leave off the article, and say, yeah, Culture Call. You'll see me in all of our past episodes. I promise you, you can scroll and listen and all that. We've got a lot of good stuff on that. Good deal. So do me a favor, sit back and relax. Grab you some coffee. If you're a coffee drinker from Maxwell House to Starbucks, you know how we do it. Maybe you're not a coffee drinker, you like tea. Okay, well, go ahead and get you some herbal tea, chamomile if you're trying to calm down, and what? Green tea, that's right. If you want that little caffeine kick to make it through the day to lunch, that's right. Get that. Maybe you're not a coffee or a tea drinker. Well, hey, guess what? Leave those sodas alone and get you some alkaline or some spring water. Detoxify your body, flush it out, wake those cells up, and get hydrated. And let's get into the culture. Y'all ready? Listen. Now, y'all, I was going to leave this alone. But one of my friends like, hey, you didn't talk about, they just knew I was going to talk about yesterday. Some of these controversial things. I try not to be always controversial. I try to be provocative so that you can listen and, you have an interesting time and you won't get bored with me since we got to be together for 2 hours. I try to, live in a peaceful kingdom. The Bible says to follow peace with all men, holiness without shall no man see the Lord. And so I try to do that. However, there are things sometimes, especially in this climate and in this culture that we cannot skirt around. And I'm going to, by the encouragement of folks saying, hey, what's your part? What you think about it? So there was an incident that happened right here in Tuscaloosa, Alabama. And normally Tuscaloosa only makes the news when the Crimson Tide football is playing, because that's kind of our claim to fame. When I travel all over the country, everybody's like, roll tide, blah, blah, blah. That's their whole, how's Nick Saban doing? Like, we best friends, but we're not, no. And so that's kind of what Tuscaloosa has been known for. But lately here, that we have been known for an issue of racism. We've been known for an issue of that I wish we didn't have to deal with, but unfortunately we do. That happened in a restaurant here, Nick's and the Sticks. Y'all have heard about it, and I'm not going to belabor it too long. There was a racial slur that was spoken, and to some black folks that went there with a white guy, a white patron, Hunter Sarton, and he is the epitome. That's what I want to talk about. He was the epitome of an ally. Like, if you're black and you don't have a white friend like Hunter, then yeah, you're missing out, because he laid it all out. But it is unfortunate. It is unfortunate that, some people are willing to lose years of and decades of business, and patronage, and finally the money, the bag. They're willing to do that in the name of maintaining racist caricature and names and labels and all that, a mindset and an ideology that has long held the South back, especially Alabama. It has long held, it is no secret that Alabama, Birmingham especially, Birmingham and Tuscaloosa and those surrounding areas should have been the Atlanta. But in that time because Birmingham was known as Birmingham and Alabama was so exceedingly racist that, all of the industry and culture took itself to Atlanta. And so, that part. And so we're now trying to catch up rather with what should have been who we should have been. I wasn't born then. I'm sure most of you probably were, but I was not born then. But I am a student of history, and it is deplorable that we're still dealing with this, y'all, in the year of our Lord 2024. That there's still people who think that racist ideas and racial animus is the way to live life, and dare I say, even to run a business. That your business being acculturated, you don't know how many people, how many customers, both black and white, that you could have lost or that you did lose because of that mindset. And not that I am hoping and wishing and praying any kind of retribution in terms of that business being shut down rather. I'm not going to, some people like, I curse it and in the name of the Lord, I'm not going to even do all that. We're not going to even do that. But here's the deal, that if the text is right in Galatians and we understand that it is, then whatever you sow, guess what? You're going to reap. And anybody who is a farmer or has dealt with anything with agriculture, if you plant one seed, you don't get one fruit. That means that what you reap is going to be so much more than what you sow. And I don't think people understand that in their decision making, in the steps of which they're, I think, if I can be really honest, I think people get caught up in all of the animus, the racist, grievance that goes on, that comes a lot of times from white people, especially in the South. There was a grievance there. And I understand the grievance of white people in the South is that they're upset because they feel like, others have come and taken away their culture, their history. They not only did they lose their slaves, but they lost their power and their control, to be able to feel superior, right? And so there's a lot of grievance. They feel economically that minorities have come in and taken their role. And the truth of the matter is, if they look at the data, and the statistics, they are still on top. They are still on top. And, all the way from Bacon's Rebellion, it's never really, it should have never really been about color or race. It really was about class and economics, but the, aristocratic whites, gave the poor whites some kind of freedom or some kind of leverage to make them think that your poverty is better than my poverty because I'm black. And from that time in the Bacon's Rebellion in Virginia all the way up to now, we're dealing with these things. Bro, you on the west side. What are you doing? The west side of every major city, of every city, is normally black folks. So if you're over there and you won't embrace the people and the culture in which, you started in Knoxville and you relocated there. And so if you know that, then you're going to have to, there should be some kind of staff training, cultural training. You just might, y'all, get you some chocolate people to walk in your facility. And the fact that, you're not prepared for that, the fact that you still thinking that Bull Connor is in charge, you still thinking that, the KKK is still the government of the South, then there is a problem. And the issue is, there needs to be some tremendous distanciation in the minds of people. And I tell people all the time, they get upset with me, but guess what? I'm a learned man. I'm about to go get my PhD from Hampton University in public theology. And I tell people, listen, I'm not just the regular preacher when you see me. No, please understand there is an education, an academic education and a biblical education that supports whatever I say. And the truth of the matter is that, racism and those things are not black people and minorities to change. And here is the onus. Here is the notion of the catalyst for that we didn't create it. It's not a vestige. It's not a tentacle of our mindset, of our culture, of our ideology. It was not even known to the old world, race as it has been constructed from Europe all the way into the Americas. That's a European Western construction. So we can fight against it all we want to. We can protest. That's why it won't die, because all we're dealing with is the symptoms and the fruit of racism. The truth of the matter is, y'all, is that racism is something that white folks, our white brothers and sisters, have to deal with within themselves. They have to get healed and delivered from that grievance. That there is something that is in them that is causing mental conniption and mental disconnection. Why? Because it has been framed as a way to keep power, control, and superiority and supremacy. That's what it's been framed as. And unfortunately, people are willing to lose. The idea of, when you think about it, when you really think about it, it has affected so much of us who live in the South. And I'm going to move on because there's so much more to talk about, but I told me, I guess I will say that my point of view and my perspective, Culture Call, is simply this, is that that there is something off and or demonic, or something that is supernaturally evil when you are willing to lose a business without care and worry because of somebody over somebody else's skin color, something that they could not control, something that they didn't choose to be, but God did, right? And you're going to reject them. It's going to be colored water signs and white water, colored water, colored entrance and white entrances. Are we going backwards? Absolutely not. No. And again, this whole idea of make America great again, this whole idea, I saw something that says make America godly again. I was like, wait a minute, push pause. Are you serious? That tells me those are people who are political but do not know history. They don't even know the history of the politics, right? And all of that, right? They don't even know the opportunity for that to be so is always pushed back with hate and with animus, with violence and vitriol, asinine rhetoric, all of that. They do that every time there is progress going toward that area, because you're never going to be a godly nation if you don't see everybody how God sees them. If you don't see the imago Dei, if you don't see the image of God in every individual that you come across, then there's an issue. You're never going to have a godly nation, right? You're never going to have a godly nation when it was okay, hear me y'all, when it was okay to leave church and hang people. You're never, right? And so that's very important. That is very, very, very important. And so one of the things that I think that we need to really deal with in this hour is to understand how we as a people can come together to make, first of all, our city better. Because now, honestly, I wish I was a prophetic prognosticator. I wish I could do that. I really do. And tell you that, things are just going to blow over. No, there's going to be some repercussion. Trust and believe. There's going to be some repercussion, and I don't know if that business stays on the west side. I do not know. I honestly, I wish I did know, but I don't know. But they have made a decision. There is a decision that has been made, right? And here's the deal. I want people to stop talking about Jesus going to fix it and God going to do this and God, if we just pray. No, that's not how. First of all, that's not even in the book, right? That when we pray, what happens? God gives instructions for our actions. And our obedience then reveals our faith, right? Got it? So it's not praying the prayer in faith is I'm praying to receive instructions to what to do next. What do we do in this circumstance? What do we do in this situation, right? It's just not that God is going to get up off the throne and send Jesus back down here to fix it. No, God is going to release wisdom, insight, revelation, and instruction for all of us so that we will understand that this is my assignment. This is my duty now. This is my responsibility and obligation for changing the things that I don't too much agree with or that I see in the world. And I'm having to stress that to church folks that, yes, men ought to always pray because men ought to always get instructions from the Lord, right? That yes, we ought to meditate. Sometimes instead of using our mouth, let's use our meditation and just wait on the Lord. Isaiah 40:31 says that those who wait gain wings. Am I right in the book? I'm in the book today, church. Right. Those that wait gain wings. They that wait upon the Lord shall renew strength, right? They shall mount up with wings as eagles. Now, that is important because that metaphor there, wings as eagles, says that in everything that the eagle's wings are different than every other bird because their span is so wide and so strong that when troubled winds come, they don't run away from the troubled winds. They don't go down underneath it. They fly into the troubled winds, adjust their wings, and soar higher. That the eagle is one of the highest soaring birds. They can handle the altitude, right? And so when we begin to do those things, God would cause us to soar above all of this thing. And I think it is very important, very, very critical in this season of MAGA, in this season of Make America Great Again, in this season where racism is still popping up its head. I cannot believe it. But still, my mom and my daddy, my grandma, my great grandma. I talked to my aunt. She's almost 100 years old. I talked to her last night, and we were talking about she never thought that what she went through. She was born. My grandma. She was born in 1927. Right? She was born in 1927, and she thought that this would be over by now for her grandchildren, her great grandchildren. And the fact that she is 90 plus still seeing this is ridiculous. That this year she'll be 97 if the Lord keeps life in her body. And she's still amazed that we're dealing with racism because it's not ours. Shout out to Jesse, shout out to Martin, shout out to Malcolm X, shout out to Medgar Evers and Ralph Abernathy and all of our ancestors and foreparents that survived the struggle, John Lewis, everybody. Shout out to all of them, the great cloud of witnesses that watch us and that promote us. But here is the reality. Y'all ready? That all they did was treat the symptoms, but they never got to the cause. And the cause is we can never do that. That's not ours. Racism is not ours to deal with. It's not. We didn't start it. We didn't bring it over here. We didn't, we're not in Portugal, Henry the Lion. We're not dealing with all of those things from a historical context. We're not dealing with those people were dealing with some wicked things. And it's rooted in a need to find their own identity, right? Because the Bible itself does not include European history. The Bible is a North African, East Asian book, right? So the people in the Bible, the scriptures, look like you and I. And so that we understand that in terms of divine identity and natural anthropological showing up and imaging, that the people in the text look like you and me, right? And so think about, you base your entire notion off of that. Well, I got to change it, right? Just a few days ago, the church, evangelical church, and even Pentecostals and Charismatics had an issue with how the Olympics opened up. This is why you ought to learn. This is why you got to go to school and get an education, as my granddaddy would say, an education. You got to learn something. That they upset about the Last Supper. They thought it was the Last Supper being mocked, and God is not mocked. Whatever, the church is always mocked. And I mean saints and different ones, they were going in. And with my smart self, smart Alec, I don't know, I guess, I'm trying to help the people. I'm not trying to show them up. I'm like, y'all, number one, let's start with this. Number one, it wasn't the Lord's Supper. Let's do that. Number one, it was a Bacchanal festival celebrating the Greek mythological god Dionysus, right? Right? Okay, so yeah, that didn't have anything to do with Christianity. But, if it was being paralleled to Leonardo's Da Vinci Last Supper, then both of them are blasphemous, because Jesus and those did not look like that. Jesus did not look like he had a silk press and blonde hair. It was not so in that part of the country. No. He was brown skinned like us. Maybe not dark, because he didn't come from that area of Africa. Right? So, no, it was, if you saw a Palestinian brother, if you're looking at this whole issue with Israel and Gaza, that's a whole nother thing that we need to talk about on the Culture Call. But nonetheless, Culture Call, he didn't look like what the portrayal of what Leonardo da Vinci did was just as blasphemous, because it was purposefully ignoring the humanity of what Jesus actually looked like. And it wasn't hard to discover, because he lived in the old world. He knew exactly. But, right. And so some of us are so busy defending these graven images. This is why God says you shouldn't have no graven image of me. He says, if you're going to worship me, you got to do what? Come on, church folks. You got to worship me in spirit and in truth. Right? Right. That means that I don't require the vesselhood that you require, God says. Right? And so when you start painting it and thinking about what God, first of all, if you paint something, or if you think God looks different than somebody that looks like you, then that's a problem. Right? Because all of us are possessors of the imago, the image of God. That God ought to look like you when you look in the mirror. If you're looking for God, God ought to look like you, because he's in you. Right? Huh? Know ye not that you are the temple of God, and the Spirit of God dwells in you? Christ in you, Colossians says, is the hope of glory. Right? If any man be in Christ, he is a new creature. What does that even look like? He says, so since we regard Christ not after the flesh anymore, neither should we regard anyway. So the moment you begin to put Jesus in any kind of God in any kind of flesh context, and it doesn't look like you, because that's what they did, but they got upset if we make Jesus with an afro and an afro pick with a black power sign. See, that they get upset about that, because, again, racism. We all over the place. Culture Call, and I think we got to do something about it. We have to do something about it. We're going to go backwards. And I said this in 2016. We're going to go backwards when we put at the helm of the country an insecure, fearful, a criminal. When you do that, and that's not something I'm just picking on. No, that is documented. When we do that, it is going to release a behemoth of principalities that we have never seen in modern times. And it's going to be difficult. I said it in 2016 during that election. I said, y'all, we're getting ready to see what happens. And now it is. That was 2016. 8 years later, we're still in that. We're still in that. Because when you politicize it, when you politicize and put politics, when you put your conservative and liberal brandings on it, Jesus is not in that. Jesus is not Republican. Jesus is not Democrat. No. Beloved, no. He's not liberal. He's not conservative. He is Christ. He is Son of the living God. Right? He is the wisdom, according to Corinthians, 1 Corinthians, he's the wisdom and the power of God. Right? He is beyond shape, beyond form, beyond color. He's beyond all of those entrapments. Does he embody that? Yes, because he lives in us. He's not casting aspersions. Well, I don't believe in color. Then you don't believe in what God says, because he created them. He said all the different things are going to be around the throne. All the different colors and ethnic races and tongues is going to be around the throne. So you're trying to make everybody invisible. And when people say, I don't see color, that's a lie. Because how do you stop at a stop sign? How do you go at a green light? How do you slow down at a yellow? How do you appreciate the rainbow if you don't see color? You see? So I'm really, really hoping that Tuscaloosa, this doesn't, that it ends here, that there is some repentance and some asking of forgiveness, because that needs to be. That's the beginning of a turn. And I hope it is done soon, because Tuscaloosa deserves it. I believe the people deserve it. And again, I don't want that business to close down, but I need them to use wisdom for the hour. Don't y'all allow somebody's vitriol to make you lose everything you work hard for. Absolutely not. This is going to be a good day. We're going to just talk about some national things and bring you up to speed on what's going on in our country so that you won't be late, last, and lost. This is yours truly, Bishop L. Spencer Smith, right here on the Culture Call. Praise 93.3, 790 WTSK. I need you to keep it right here. Much more to come. Don't you dare miss it.
This is the world premiere.
And we are back having a wonderful morning right here on the Culture Call with yours truly, L. Spencer Smith. Listen, I'm telling you that we're going to have a great conversation today dealing with some issues. I just want to make sure that I touch base on that. I wasn't going to, but hey, one of my listeners said, hey, what you think about? And I figured, well, let me see what I can say on air. Let me see what's going on, what I can come up with. I didn't want to offend anybody, because folks get offended so quickly. And, I've really been dealing with offense lately, especially an offended church lately. I've been really dealing with that online. I think I got into trouble as I normally do because my thing about being offended is, one of the things is it worth it? Number two, is it something, are you offended over the right thing? You know what I'm saying? That why are you going to be mad about something and don't even have the full information? And sometimes we just kind of genuflect to our own emotions, and our, offense quotient is so low. We get mad and upset about any and everything only to find out that it ain't what we thought it was going to be. Right. And so then we do that. But, another issue that's been really going on, Culture Call, is I want to vector on this whole issue of if we look across the country, in our schools, in our universities, in our job workplaces, there is a dismantling of DEI programs, of diversity, equity, and inclusion. Now, what does that have to do with us? I'm glad that you asked. The basic premise is that in order to kind of reverse the racial institution, the racist institutions that have been set up in America and in our country, from the church all the way to, the lunch counter, right? If we're going to really make America great, period, not even again, because again is racist on its face, because America has not been great to everybody, especially black and brown people. It just has not. Native Americans, it has not been great. None of that, right? So to say make America great again already has some issues with it. But nonetheless, if we're going to do that, we've got to attack some things at the root. And, the whole idea of the institution of that we deal with in America, if we're going to deal with that and really be successful, we've got to deal with diversity, equity, and inclusion, right? That, yes, diversity, that it recognizes that everybody is not the same. Neither is everybody required to be the same. Not all black people, not all white people, come closer, not all Christian people. Hello, not all Christian people, right? Not all unbelieving people. We got to have to learn how to live in a diverse society, right? And that was a part of Jesus' mission to us as the church in Matthew 28, go into all the world, right? And that whole idea, the world, that you're sending us into a system, that was the whole idea of Jesus telling Peter to go out and catch fish, and he caught many different kinds of fishes. It was the whole issue of Paul seeing the canopy fall out of heaven, and it says, Father, and the Christ says, "Why is Peter slay and eat?" Peter says, "No, I can't. How can I eat that which is unclean?" And the voice of the Lord says, "How can you call unclean that which I have cleansed?" And it was a diversity of wild beasts. It was symbolic and allegory of the message or the world, right, of the gospel. And that was very important that Peter see that, right? Now, if Peter, because of his own ethnic issues, failed that God had to raise up Saul of Tarsus, called Paulus, or Paul, how we call him. And And so then Paul had to go out and minister to the Gentile as Peter stayed and was ministering to the Jew nonetheless. So there's always been diversity in culture, right? And so it is the recognition of the diversity and the admission that, one, everybody doesn't have to be like me. Everybody doesn't have to believe like how I believe, didn't have to look like how I look, didn't have to come from the same culture or the same place on the planet as I come from, right? In order to be, to receive the next word, which is equity, right? Which is equity, right? So all of this diverse populations of people ought to have equal and equitable rights and opportunities and access to certain things that will make their lives better. Diversity, equity, and then lastly, inclusion. That how are we going to make these things, these diverse people, live in an equitable society? We're going to include them in spaces and in places and opportunity and key points of access that they did not have before, right? So diversity, yes. Equity, yes. And inclusion. Now, if you listen to some people talk about it, you would think that there was something demonic or satanic about it, when in fact it's not. It is a remedy, a partial remedy to help or to aid and or to reverse or to get us in spiritual language delivered from this whole idea of racial animus, racism, right? Diversity, equity, and inclusion. And we are looking at within the last year, I mean, especially in the South, people who had, diversity, equity, and inclusion as a part of all of that. So, after all of those particular things, all of that issue going on and X, Y, Z, all that, we have an opportunity now. We have an opportunity now to make sure that guess what? We're going to try. Now we're reversing that, saying, well, no, it's a part of the CRT critical race theory. It's a part of making one population feel bad. But y'all, come closer. You're not going to say how that one portion of the population made everybody in this country feel bad. And now we're worried now that we don't want to make, Caucasian white brothers and sisters who are beneficiaries of that system. They may not have been slave owners. They may not have been violent, vitriolic, and brutal, but you are beneficiaries. This country was built and deeded to you. What DEI is saying is that if you really want to, you can't do both. You can't keep people out and not recognize the damage that has been done, and then say, well, okay, well, we all brothers and sisters, ain't that never happened. No, you can't change history like that. You just can't, Culture Call. You cannot do that. And many people are attempting to do that. Many people are attempting to do that. And that's the sad part about it. That they think that we don't understand really what's going on. No, we do. Yeah, we really, really, really do. And so we need to really to focus on how can, here we go again, how can we fix this? How can this be repaired? How can we move beyond this point and beyond this matter? How can we do that? And if we don't have that opportunity by DEI, or you're against that, then that says something to me. That says something to all of us, Earlier this year, our own governor, Governor Ivey, she signed a DEI bill into law, because they said DEI, diversity. Remember, I explained to you what it was. Diversity, it is the recognition that we are diverse and that we all deserve equity, and that in order to do that, we are going to be included and given access into spaces that we were not once allowed to be in. You see? And that means positions of economy, positions of leadership, etc., right? But they call it a divisive concept. It's not. What is it about this country, Culture Call? And I know you probably already know, but what is it about this country that does not want to own up to what it did? I'm not understanding. You know, that every time you say, here is the deal, you get somebody to both sides. Well, you know, they stole slaves in Africa. That was a totally different kind. Lord have mercy. People need to read. The issue is chattel slavery. CHATTEL is unique to this country. The way that this country did slavery is totally different, right? And so when you read historical words in text, when you read that, you would think if you see the word slavery that it means the same thing everywhere, as if you're allowing English to be the framework of everybody else's language. No, English is a derivative of Latin, German, you know, different old world languages, right? Hebrew, Arabic, you know, all of the numbers that we have now are Arabic numbers. There are no English numbers, y'all. There ain't no American numbers, no such thing. They're Arabic. And so some guy was like, you know, do you think we should get away from Arabic numbers? Yes, we should get away from Arabic numbers and use American numbers. There is no, there are no such things. These things predate us. They predate us, you know? And it's hilarious because they stand 10 toes down on it. You know, I don't think we ought to be divided, but you're dividing us because you're not recognizing that this person has a right to live. This person has a right to be. This person has a right to move and has a right to live in the way they should live. That they do have a right. Even if you don't agree with their life, they have a right to live. Even if you don't agree with what they're doing and you know, even if you don't, that's not the choice you would have made for your life. That person still has a right to live, right to make a living. That's not hard, y'all. God loves the world, not just the Christian, not just the believer. God loves the world. So says John 3:16. And he sent his son Jesus to do what? To seek and to save that which was lost, not those who were lost. Get your Bible. That's what it says. I came to seek and to save that which was lost, not those who were lost. Right? Right? And then the text says in John, the very first chapter, that he came into his own and his own received him. He didn't even really come initially as a world assignment at that time. He came to his own people, but his people rejected him. And because he was rejected, he came to his own didn't receive him. So now to as many as would receive him, there we go. To them, he gave power to become what? Sons of God. Not at the will of man, but by the will of God. This is not difficult. And we keep looking at each other in so much great difference. But 99% of all of our DNA matches. There are only a few significant nuances to our bodies, our minds, all of these things. And these are and the differences are the things that you can see. Right? But if you needed a heart transplant, you don't know whether that heart transplant came from an Asian, came from an African, came from a European. All you know is I need a heart transplant. Right? If you needed an eye transplant, you don't know if that eye came from this one or that one. No, you just need an eye transplant. See, we major in minors and minors in majors because this whole system of how we do this American journey, this American experiment is off. And we got to confront that. And the reason why I talk, you know, a guy asked me, why do you say so much to the church and to the believer? Because I believe, here's my belief culture call. Y'all ready? That even though many people listen to me that may not be believers, and that is cool. I'm good. This is a talk show, so I'm good. But here is the reality. I believe that God has given something special as a unique assignment to the church. And if we, to make men know him, right? To make all men know him, right? To know him and to make him known. That's the church's assignment, to show forth his praises, the one that called us out of ignorance into the marvelous light, into a moment of insight, revelation, wisdom, and knowledge. That's what we're supposed to do. That's our assignment. Our assignment is not to get caught up on fleshly particularities and say, hey, X, Y, Z, ABC. No, that's not what our assignment is. Our assignment is to recognize, to send out that message that everybody is in the image of God or possesses the image of God. Everybody has an opportunity to come back into their what Denzel Washington would call in the great debate is the righteous mind. Right? It's important. And if we don't do that, we've failed egregiously. We have failed egregiously. And that's something that we desperately, culture call. We desperately need to change that. Right? You desperately need to do that. And so if we cannot do that, that's going to be a problem. That's going to be a problem, a continued problem in the world, a definitely continued problem in America. Definitely. So, while you're banning it, you're banning mask, you're banning books, you're banning everything that you don't agree with. You can't say this. You can't say gay. You can't say this. My thing is, if you can't call a thing, how do you change a thing if the thing don't admit that it's that thing? You mad because somebody calls them gay. Well, now, especially if you're a believer and you don't think that, but what is the remedy for that? Are they going to hell? It is not ours to do that. Our assignment is to share with them the glorious gospel. But when you put politics and stuff, as we have done in America, when you put that into it, it clouds and dilutes the power and the efficacy, the effectiveness of our message. Now people don't want church, not because they don't want God, not because they don't want Jesus. They just don't like the people that represent him. Let's get it straight. Let's not get it twisted. Let's get it straight. Let's get it straight. All of that. All of that. And we got to do it quickly before another generation comes to the fore. Do y'all hear me? I know you do. Culture Call, listen, we got to take a break. Listen, I need you to go ahead, get your little snack. We'll be right back. There's so much more to talk about. Y'all give me a holler, 205-752-4800. Give me a holler. Let's talk. I'll catch you on the other side. Guess what? This is the Culture Call with yours truly, L. Spencer Smith. I need you to keep it locked right here. We'll be back.
This is the world premiere.
And we are back. Guess what? It's the top of the hour right here on the Culture Call with yours truly, L. Spencer Smith, 11 a.m. and some change. And we have been having an amazing day and a great conversation. I think it's impactful and powerful. I think it is needed for the times in which we live. And especially as we're about to reconvene back into school, summer's almost over. And this summer has moved real fast, right? But summer's almost over. And really right now we are in election season, right? And so there's a whole different shift coming about. And I think there are certain conversations that we need to have, again, like I said, the diversity, equity, inclusion. The university just moved away from theirs, the UA. I think all these things are signs of the times. I don't think they're sins of the times. I just think they're signs of the times. One of the things that we learn in it's a study called semiotics. It's a study of signs where you begin to look at certain things that are happening and begin to try to, from those particular symbols, metaphors, allegories, whatever's going on, those particular signs, you begin to define and begin to create infrastructure, intellectual infrastructure about what's going on in the world around you. And so, again, we're so busy looking at the sins of the time that I think we're missing something so very powerful about the signs of the time. That, yes, we're in a changing culture. Culture Call. It's changing quickly. And, so many people have so many things to do and to say, about what's going on. And, I get it. I really understand it. And it's a time that engenders a lot of fright, a lot of fear, a lot of anxiety, uncertainty, when you hear one side say, well, all you Christians, particularly Christians, you have to vote. This will be your last time voting. And then, them giving that candidate an opportunity to clean it up. And they double down on it, that if we're not careful, we are leading ourselves into despotic times, or into a time of dynasty, or a time of autocratic rule. And I know there's some that's listening to me. Oh, that can't happen. They won't let that happen. Trust and believe. Trust and believe. If January 6th, none of us thought that could happen. That would ever happen. It had never happened. It had never happened that a losing presidential candidate would amalgamate a group of people that would attack the capital of the United States. That we never saw that. And none of us ever thought it was coming. And so those of you who, are on that, oh, well, no, I don't see how that going to happen. It's going to be another election. The Supreme Court, but you can't depend on them now, you see. And there is, that's why I'm glad that the current administration, Biden-Harris administration, are recommending reforms to the Supreme Court, because, again, it functioned perfectly. And perfectly as in terms of not it did everything perfectly, but it functioned without any kind of, crookedness or known corruption for years. You get a set of people and appointed there, and then you see how quickly corruption could turn into, justice to the highest bidder. Or you get things like, overturning rights of people, voting rights, women's rights, all those different kinds of things. You see that. Yeah, you see that. And so don't tell me it can't happen. I get it. There are some of you that can't happen. They ain't gonna let that happen. It's not an issue. Nobody let January 6th happen. It happened. And so the problem is that we have a hard time dealing with signs. SIGNS. And I am not a conspiracy theorist. I am not any of these things, but signs tell you that something ahead is about to change. Something ahead is about to shift, right? That when you stop at a stop sign, that sign doesn't just tell you to stop. It also tells you to stop because what? Something is coming, right? And you don't move until you look both ways. You clear your way in order for you to continue to move forward. Well, if you ignore the sign and act like nothing is happening, then you could be driving, and because you ignore the sign, a Mack truck slams inside of you. And now you've destroyed your car and perhaps even lost your own life, not because the sign wasn't there. It's because you ignored it. Period. And so one of the things that I'm saying to you, Culture Call, is that we got to pay attention to all of the things that are happening around us. That we this is not, and I did not understand it a few months ago, and I do not like to wax preacherly because, I want to talk to everybody, but just, I was up, I think preaching the word one time, and I said, hey, y'all, I just, a download hit me, and I said, this is not the time to be offended, because if you are offended, you're going to miss definitive signs and demarcations about the thing that is coming next. So the text in Psalm 119, 165 says, great peace have they that love thy law, and nothing shall offend them. That really in the English outside of the Elizabethan Old World English of King James, it just means that nothing, if when you've got peace, when you understand the signs, you understand what the word is saying, you understand all these other different kinds of things, it says you will not stumble or you will not fall. And so we're thinking that, oh my God, that they do that. Oh, they made a mockery. They would never do that to Muslims. They would never do that. Well, because number one, and that is not to say they don't do it, but that they know that some violence is going to come up. Well, our text tells us not to do that. Our text tells us not to do that. Jesus said, Peter, if you live by the sword, what? You're going to die by the sword. That's what our text says. You're so busy looking at somebody else's paper and that's another religion. That's not what our assignment is. He says it is inevitable that offense is going to come. It's not that they hate you. They hate me. Therefore, it's going to look like they hate you if you're part of me. But the issue is not for you to hate them. Okay, there you go. Because you're so busy hating them over what you think they did. Right? Have you ever had a friend or somebody, Coach Call, that was mad at somebody and they wanted you to be mad at them because they were mad at them and you had no idea of what the situation was going on, and then that friend of yours told you their side? They ain't going to tell you everything. They're going to tell you the side that makes you agree with them. Have you ever been in that situation? Well, I have plenty of times. Right? And what I have decided is that, okay, I can decide and make a choice to be your friend without getting into this before I know the facts of the situation. No, I'm not. See, regardless of this, I wasn't going to let them do anything to you anyway because I'm your friend. I was going to defend you even if you're not in the room because we're in relationship together. Right? And so I said all of that is that there is a sector of our society, namely the church, that gets so easily offended. Your righteousness and your faith gets so easily offended that it's causing us to fall, stumble, causing us to hate and to be violent and somewhat violate the same people that we are called to win, that we are called to open our doors to. Exactly. So, Coach Cole, we got to start thinking about this on a very big level. We got to start thinking about that, right? That when you and see, let me. This offense is based on nothing that is biblical, because when we really talk about offending God, Jesus, they talk about his people offending him, his children offending him, right? The children of Israel got put into captivity all the time and in bondage, not because of the enemy, but because of them offending God, God's children offending him. The Hebrews, the Israelites offending God. God had to turn them over. That's fact. Into the hands of other people. You've caused them to blaspheme because we brought politics. And we have this religion that is fueled not by a prime Christology, not by an informed Christology, but by a political Western virtue that says we are right and all we are wrong. If you don't say anything about the pastors, the youth pastors sexually abusing and molesting children and youth and women and all that, if you've not said anything about that, don't come to me about the opening of the Olympics. If you know Reverend Dr. So-and-so did something to this little child and you said nothing, beating his wife and you said nothing, leaving his family and got a side piece and you said nothing, then miss me when it comes to, the Bacchus festival in France, a place that most people ain't never been to, never studied Greek mythology, never read it, all of that, right? And so and so that's an affront on Christianity. Okay, and what? What is our response? Culture call. What is our reaction? Okay, that part is the thing that God is measuring. You're thinking God sees the world like you see the world. No, If judgment is going to begin, the text tells us that it first begins with God's people at his house. You can't get mad at them, and you have no issue voting for somebody that has cheated and slept on all of his wives. You don't have a problem with that. That he's 3 times married. You have no problem with that. Slept with porn stars. Cheated foundations. You ain't got no problem with that. None. Asked for 5 young black boys to be killed in New York over when they were innocent for New York to restore the death penalty. And to this day, even after they have been exonerated, still won't apologize, still will not repent and say, see, we feign outrage at the things that are not politically like us, not spiritually. Culture call. That's what happens. Yeah. That's what all this is about. You're not saying about that. I have not heard any umbrage about anything from any churches other than black and brown churches about what happened at Nick at the Sticks. But you done got on social media mad and Paris, France, you mad. But right here in your own front door, you ain't said nothing. Yeah. See, this is the thing. Culture call. This is the entire situation. This is why we're losing our moral authority. This is why they look at us with a sideline like, what they talking about? What and what? Because, yeah, we pick and we choose what we want to get mad at. Right? If you didn't say nothing about your brother doing it, why are you saying something about somebody else doing it? If your hairstylist is gay and homosexual and you let them put your hands in your sanctified head, right? Because they do hair so well. But how you going to get out here and talk about people in drag and other stuff? How you going to do that? How you going to do it? Now, I know some of y'all don't do it. I'm not saying everybody, but you see, I'm pointing out the hypocrisy that we deal with people picking and choosing what they get upset over. Why are you mad? Why are you upset? Yeah, exactly. If you're not saying about anything about the young boys shooting up our neighborhoods, then don't say nothing about anything that's going over there on Israel and Gaza. I'm talking about because of Pookie and Ray Ray and Junebug, because you know them, because that's your family terrorizing the neighborhood with drugs and whatnot, and you covered for them, then don't miss me with all this other high and mighty when it comes to somebody else. No, unless you're going to, and this is the issue with America. If you're going to fuss about this in another country, then deal with it in your own. If you're upset about the man in Venezuela not giving up power when he's lost the election, then adjudicate it over here when it's you. That's the issue, Culture Call. And I mean, I might get in trouble for saying it, but guess what? It's already out there now. That is the reality. If we're going to be mad about that, then let's start getting mad about this part. You see what I'm saying? If we live around corrupt people and we say nothing, then when you see corruption and you get a heady and high-minded viewpoint of it, my goodness. You mad about stuff that God ain't mad about. You mad about stuff that Jesus ain't even thinking about. That's what you mad about. That's what you are upset about. And the question becomes why? The question becomes, why are you mad about it? Absolutely. Why are you mad? And that's what I want to know. Why is you mad, saints? Why? We got to begin to understand that all of these things matter. All of these things matter. And if we do not change our perspective, we're not going to be good to our communities. We're not going to be good to our families. See, because you can't get mad when your son-in-law hit your daughter, but you hitting your wife. You mad because he hitting your daughter, but you okay knocking your wife around? Really? Really? That's what we doing today? No. See, this, you see what I'm saying, Culture Call? Hit me up on this app and let me know y'all hearing me. Yeah, I want you to understand that we cannot pick and choose when we want to be offended. No. It hurts our children. It hurts those around us. It hurts everything that we do. It hurts the potential of us being someone. Some people that God can use to be a blessing to others. So, I told you, I was 10 toes down on this racial thing because I'm like that everywhere I go. I'm like that everywhere I go. And if I don't, then I was telling Brother Jay today, if I'm not going to tell the truth, if I'm not going to be honest and cut it down, then I might as well get off the radio because I didn't get on the radio to lie to you. What we doing? No. I'm going to tell you the truth, whether you get mad at me or not. I reckon that it may I could be very, very popular traveling all across the country if I would just say what folks want me to say. But that's not what my assignment is. No, beloved, my assignment is to tell the truth and to liberate people, everybody, to introduce people, to offer them a better way of living, to tell the truth about our community and how we could do better, to tell the truth about our relationships and our families and our marriages and how we could do better, to tell the truth about our country, right? And tell the truth about our city and our state and how we keep making these decisions and we place and define them as something God would ordain. But we can look at the scripture that has been God-breathed, ordained by God. We can look at that and see how everything that we do is, is antithetical to what the text says. I mean, it's not difficult. It's not hard. But when you're trying to be political about it, when you're trying to be political about it, when you're trying to make it look like, oh, somebody doing something wrong, somebody making God's name. God didn't lose any power. Jesus didn't lose any power because that blue man with grapes on his head. Right? And he didn't lose any power with Leonardo da Vinci's portrayal of Jesus with a silk press. Because we all had him in our houses, our families. Yeah. Our families had the white Jesus and the white on the fans and all that, had him in our house. Y'all remember good times? Florida Evans nearly snapped Michael's neck because he put up a black Jesus, not even understanding that was, somebody else's depiction. Warner Salmon, that's what it was. Warner Salmon. That he painted that. And when you look behind why they painted it, it was a piece of propaganda. It was to say that this is what Jesus looks like, and that's what we think he looks like, and we can't get off of it. I mean, we on that ship, ride or die. This is what he looked like, and he didn't. Because I got to make sure that they don't understand, and you don't understand that if he looked like anything, he looked closer to me than he did to you. And that's a political thing. That is a political decision. Poverty is a political decision that affects race, that affects economy, that of all that. Yeah, because in the richest country in the world, we could change poverty. For what we spend on wars, we could change all of the public school systems. For what we spend fighting and creating domination, military domination in other countries, we could wipe out homelessness. Yes, we could. We could. We could make sure that everybody has a living wage. And I'm talking about living very comfortably. But to do that, then we're going to have to we're going to see each other's humanity as something that has been God ordained. Right? But this country is built on rich and poor. Well, the Bible said the poor you're going to have with you always. As if that is a theological implementation that God wanted to happen. Okay, we got to create the poor. No, we don't know. That's not what we do. That's not what we do. Culture Call. I was riding with my wife we were in Birmingham the other day, and we were coming home. We were going to get something to eat, and we drove past this underpass and this lady and her family were under the bridge, living under the bridge, y'all. This lady had a broom sweeping under the bridge like we would sweep our front porch. She was sweeping off the front porch of her quote-unquote home under the bridge. And I said, my God. My wife is like, my Lord, what dignity that is. She's maintaining her dignity even in her homeless state. Even in her homeless state, Culture Call, this woman was sweeping the dust from underneath the overpass because that was her home. Right? What if we gave that dignity and opportunity to live? And we can. But we can't do it with this politicized religious Jesus and politicized religious church because we'll think that that is the mission field. Not even understanding that there are some folks that are well-to-do but still don't have their right mind. That poor people don't commit suicide, rich folk do. People who are well off. Who you think, man, how could they do this? Yeah, they're miserable. And this woman had the joy and the dignity, the wherewithal to sweep up under the underpass. Do y'all hear me? We got to look at this thing and understand the signs. Maybe what we think is important, Culture Call, I'm coming to know that ain't stuff, that ain't the important stuff. Now, do we need money? Yes. Do we need places to live? Absolutely. Do we need cars to drive? Yes. Right? You know, do we need some material things so that our lives could be better? Yeah, no problem with that. But when we make those things our God and we begin to look at other people who don't have as much as us or not the same advantages as us as lesser than us, and come closer, it's the American way. When we begin to do that and think that God is pleased, and think that we are a betterment to humanity? Absolutely not. I told my wife driving, I said, if I had $1 million, that woman under that bridge would have had all of it. That's just kind of how I'm built. I'd have stopped and blessed her whole life. Listen, I would have put them up and got them situated and connected with somebody. Put a good down payment on the house and put some groceries in there. Absolutely. Because yeah, that's what we need in our communities, Culture Call. People who are not finding arguments and finding offenses to cast people off and, I'm going to glory, I'm going to heaven, and they're going to hell. No, that ain't what we're doing. Not in this hour. Pay attention to the signs. What are the signs saying? And the signs are not saying he's soon to come. The sign is saying you should be soon to come. That you should be showing up. That's what the sign should be saying. Culture Call. Listen, we're having a great day right here on the Culture Call with yours truly, L. Spencer Smith. I need you to keep it right here. We'll be back in a moment.
This is the world premiere.
And we are back right here on the Culture Call with yours truly, L. Spencer Smith. Praise 93.3, 790 WTSK, being your inspiration all day and talking the news like we know you need it to be talked. Yeah, having a conversation with my people. I'm grateful that we won't be late, last, and or lost in this world. That's my mission. That's my mission, you know. And, you know, somebody asked me, do you think people are going to come to your church? You don't have to. You don't have to do that. That's not why I'm on here. I want you to empower your community and be a light wherever you are. And that is whether you're on east side, west side, north side, or south side, that you be a viable member of the community and build families that, guess what? That cause our communities to become better, that we can begin to set some things up, you know, that help us. I think that's the place that we're in, and that's why I do what I do every day. So I thank again all of you all who listen to the Culture Call. Listen, there's one more thing that I want to deal with. And, you know, I was online and you know what? I'm going to learn Culture Call. I'm going to learn. If y'all see me online and cutting up, just get in there and say, hey, all right, go to sleep. Go, you know, eat you some fruit. because I am a big fruit eater. Nonetheless, get you some cup of watermelon or something. Stop cutting up because now you're going to make some folks mad. Well, I placed on my page on Facebook that we need to have a conversation, especially in light of this election, with President Biden stepping down and, endorsing his VP, Kamala Harris, that to be the next president or the Democratic presidential candidate. I said, okay, listen, because I've lived in these streets, y'all. I'm not for the streets, but I done lived in these streets, especially these church streets and these community streets. I've lived in them all of my life. And I said, we're going to have a conversation about misogyny and chauvinism within the context of our community and in the church especially, because it's going to be difficult for men who don't believe that women have any place in leadership and or platform to really vote for a woman, a black woman, a qualified black woman, a woman that is is the most qualified person on in this presidential race in terms of politics and legislative offices. I didn't know we need to have a conversation, and I wasn't trying to cast aspersions. It's just the fact of the matter that we need to go back and look at the text, and because again, I was speaking specifically to the church, and in terms of what we need to talk about, and then I get some folks on, most people were like, yeah, we definitely need to have that talk when you're ready, Bishop, blah blah blah, because I don't want us to miss an opportunity to make history, to preserve to make history. Number two, to preserve democracy, and three, that this is not a quote unquote righteous choice in terms of us electing a Messiah. That's what I want to go with that. We're not trying to vote in a perfect person. We're not voting for another Jesus. We're not voting for Christ, the sequel. We're voting for the best person who can lead our country, everybody, not just Christian, but everybody who has the sanity, who has the sensitivity, who has the sobriety, the intelligence, the wisdom to be able to do that. It just so happens that this individual, for the time in which we live, remember signs, is a woman, is a female. And I wanted to have that conversation to help my brothers and my sisters who have an issue with women being in leadership, especially because I know that there are some that interpret the text of women to be silent and all this other kind of stuff. Can't be this, can't be that, can't be any of that, And so I wanted to have this conversation. And all of a sudden, men started chiming in. We'll also talk about feminism, also talk about Miss Andrew and all these different kinds of things. That Miss Andrew is just this whole idea of the mistrust and the lack of trust in men and all those different kinds. They want me to talk about that as a balance. And I asked the question, I said, is it reactive? Is what you want me to talk about, feminism and women not trusting men, is it reactive to something that maybe men have done, right? Because if men have been in charge, and as far as I know, feminism as a political, social, cultural device was born maybe in the 60s, mid 60s, 70s, really 80s, coming in and then it began to be when black women moved into it. It moved from feminism to womanism because that's a different kind of origin, but we don't have time to deal with that. I was saying, is everything you want me to talk about a reaction to a misappropriation to what men have done? So that when you're dealing with hyperpatriarchy, when you're dealing with chauvinism and misogyny and stealing and ripping away their agency, like right now, that there is no law that regulates the bodies and the agency of men. But there is one in states all over the country. And even, that there's one side that's fighting for a federal ban. And I get it, a federal ban on abortion, because that's all they think about for women's bodies, which, of course, women's bodies and women's care is so much more than that, right? And abortion is not an issue whereby can be politicized, right? Because, you're thinking that you're adding a little salaciousness, and that is a vestige of patriarchy. That's how men view women. But as a pastor in real time, I have sat down with women and wives with their husbands to talk about terminating a pregnancy because of a doctor's prognosis, of what may happen. And I looked at the tears and the pain and the hurt of them believing and trying so very hard and waiting to have a child. But now the doctor says, if you have this child, it's not going to be formed well, or it may end your life. And I've had to look at them and see them make the difficult decisions to move forward with that, with the decision to terminate that pregnancy, not as a matter of religious conscience, because I still believe that they are saved. But that husband was like, yeah, but I don't want to lose my wife, though. That's not an easy conversation. Here's what I'm trying to say, Culture Call. It's not an easy conversation because it's not our conversation to have on behalf of other people. It's not our conversation. That is a very private, sensitive moment for an individual. And I was fortunate, but unfortunate to be even a part of that conversation. Yeah. Because I'm like, why y'all came to me? I was like, man, I wish y'all had done whatever you're going to do and don't even inform me, because then I would be none the wiser. But what I said that to say, that is not a decision that comes out of Washington. And so, women have to fight for who they are in terms of feminism. And I get this whole idea of misandry. I get under that because women I don't trust men. I hear it all the time, even in church. I don't, because I don't know if I'm the only one, all these different kinds of things. But the fact that there were men that didn't even want to talk about it apart from that. And so I just said, is this a reaction to something that we have done? If I have mistreated my wife and abused her, and then she doesn't trust me, is she not just not trusting me on its face, or did I do something for her to learn not to trust me? And that is what we need to have a conversation about. That part and parcel, and I'm going to deal with it sometimes this week, part and parcel of a lot of the things that we deal with in society. Remember, I want you to keep in the back of your mind the word signs. We're having to deal with this. We're having to confront this. I heard an eloquent pastor, and I really like him, Pastor Terry Anderson. He's Lily Grove Baptist Church in Houston, Texas. And he said, he preached, he said, when I heard of former President Biden stepping down and putting a woman there to be he said, I didn't like it at first. I didn't like his decision. I hated the decision at first. He said, but now, he says, when I look at, when they're calling her a DEI candidate, when they're calling her, out of her name, when they're misaligning her, he said, I'm all for her now, because what I will not do as a black man is let anybody speak against a black woman or anybody black from my community, especially my women. I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to do that. Calling her out of her name, calling her a slut, calling her different kinds of vulgar names. And you would side and not be a part of that simply because you don't believe through some cultural interpretation of text? That, yeah. So I told the brothers, listen, if we're going to talk about it, because I don't debate, I will discuss. If you can't talk about the specifics or the framework of the specific woman theory or the oppressive culture theory or the mistranslation theory, if you can't talk about that, and if you don't have the ability to talk about the Greek language and the cultural aesthetics that were happening at that time in each and every church, if you don't talk about that, if you don't have the wherewithal to talk about that, then you don't need to be on this post, because you're not about liberating people. You're not about freeing and making people better. You're about trying to prove a point. No, bro, we're not finna do that. Not over in this part, not over in this branch of Zion. We're not doing that. No, absolutely not. And I told him, absolutely. And see, one of the things that we need to pay attention to, Culture Call, is the nuanced way that Jesus handled things and reversed a lot of the law that was going on. number one. Number two, we need to really delve in. Paul has the difficult thing of reading Paul's writings, Paul's epistles. The difficult thing about that is that Paul was dealing with certain cultural things that were happening in specific churches. You're thinking that he's talking about the church with all. No, he's talking about something was happening specifically in Corinth. Something was happening specifically in Ephesus. Something was happening specifically in Philippi. Something was happening specifically in Colossae and Thessalonica. Specifically, and you can read the language. And so when you begin to deal with, right, when you begin to deal with let women keep silent in the church, wasn't mean tell women to shut up. No, that word, the Greek word silence that he used, silent, is her to move beyond her power to say something and learn when she gets home with her husband as not to cause a fuss and a fight in the church, in the synagogue, right? He wasn't saying forever be silent. That's not what he was saying. He was talking about, you have to look at, see, when we say silent and shut up in English, we mean silent and shut up. But when you say silent in Greek, silence in Hebrew, you got to look out what silence are they using. You got to look at the particular word that they were saying, right? Else you misinterpret what he was saying. That's the whole misinterpretation theory, because we're imputing English and American ideology on Hebrew and Greek translated words. And you can't do that, right? So this whole issue of women in leadership that we're going to be dealing with in this coming election, let's pay attention to it. Because listen, girls been helping us out. Women have been helping us out for a long time, fellas. And we might need to think about what the church would be like, what our homes would be like if the women actually kept silent and didn't do anything. Where would we be? What would become of us? And again, that's the whole idea of all you are good for is the kitchen and the bedroom. The kitchen and the bedroom, right? That comes out of that mindset. And people try to put righteous or religious, there you go, kind of interpretation on it. But no, that's where it comes from. It's a political thing born out of male insecurity. And yeah, but pay attention to the signs. God has given us an opportunity to confront that in this hour. That's what he's doing. And we're going to do it right here on the Culture Call. Listen, got to take my last break. I see the runway, but I need you to keep it right here for more of the Culture Call with yours truly, L. Spencer Smith.
This is the world premiere.
Well, family, this has been an amazing day, a great day. Yeah, and we've talked a little bit about everything, like we said in our opener. But listen, I want you to make sure that you pay attention to signs. S-I-G-N-S. That's right. Signs, not to be afraid or not to be, but I want you to see that in our culture, in our day, in our community, everywhere we are, there are signs that tell us or that give us an information on what we need to do and what we need to be next. I don't need you to be afraid to embrace the next of who you are and the assignment of what we have to do. We have a great assignment facing us in this hour. Listen, and I want you to embrace it with all of the power and the strength and the gift that God has given you. All right? Good deal. Listen, Culture Call, like my grandma, my mama would say at the end of every phone call, I love you a bushel, I love you a peck, and I love you a hug around the neck. This has been yours truly, Bishop L. Spencer Smith, right here on Praise 93.3, 790 WTSK, and the Culture Call, the award-winning Culture Call. I'm so grateful for all of that. You have a great day. Be at peace with each other. Listen, stay out of trouble because I know some of y'all and love each other with intention. Until we meet again tomorrow morning from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. Stay together. Be right there. And I'm going to meet you right here. And we're going to have a good time. Good conversation. Love you guys. Have a blessed day.